Hello. So today I'm going to be talking about disability inclusion. Somebody will ask, why are you talking about disability inclusion? Now, you remember on the 3rd of December, the United Nations and the world at large celebrated the International Day for Persons with Disabilities. And I thought to myself, as a disability advocate and having worked for quite a good number of years within the disability space, I had this to offer to help people out there who want to know how to actually mainstream disability within their workspace. So this is what I am doing today. I'm going to be talking about disability inclusion, how you can mainstream or achieve inclusion within your workspace. It could be your home, it could be your office, it could be any other social or space where persons with disabilities are. So before I begin, what is disability? Now, people have different, definitions to disability. It could be, some define it as a loss of sight, it could be a loss of limb and all of that. Now, while that might be correct, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities have a standard definition for disability. Now, the summary of that definition is that they see disability as an impairment. So impairment, meaning that it is an impairment that a person has that faces a barrier. So they don't see the person's loss of sight or the person's hearing as an issue, but they feel that why that person is not able to live their life fully like every other person is because there are some barriers that do not allow them to exhibit their full potential. Take, for instance, a person who has visual impairment, like who is blind, like you literally say. When he faces, perhaps he works in an organization and he comes in contact, he has his job schedule, meaning maybe typing, or it is the obstacle. The obstacle there is what prevents him from living his life or fulfilling his duties, meaning that it's not because he has his eyes, he can't see, or he has loss of sight. It's because there are no things, those barriers that are in place that keeps him away from having access or being able to do his job. So what is really an impairment? I used the word impairment. Now, impairment can be any component of the body or an organ that a human being has. It could be a loss of the arm, it could be a loss of sight. So now you see, with this definition of impairment, you're not seeing disability as a person, but you're seeing disability now as a loss of somebody's organ or somebody's body structure. So that is the best way. That is what the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons defines disability as: a loss of, as an impairment which comes from a loss of limb, organ, or body structure. Now, why disability inclusion? Why should we be talking about inclusion? And what is even inclusion? Many people use the word, oh, I'm an inclusive expert, but what is actually inclusion? Now, I'm going to be reading this out. Inclusion means a rights-based approach to community programming. So what it is saying there in summary is that inclusion is a right. Okay, it means a right-based approach to community programming or any intervention aimed at having persons with disabilities, or aimed at ensuring that persons with disabilities have access to basic services. So inclusion means whatever thing you're doing, do it in such a way that other people, like persons who have this impairment, loss of sight, loss of hearing, can access every other thing like every other person. That's actually what disability inclusion means. Creating access for persons with disabilities to participate in activities like every other person. So why inclusion? Remember, in that word I said inclusion is a right. It's a right of everybody. But then the one thing you need to know about inclusion is that it has to be an overall, it has to be all-inclusive, meaning that it's not something I will do on my own. I have to carry the people who have the need along. So take note of that, because I'll be talking about it later. Now, so how do we achieve this inclusion I talked about? This is my big thing. I have always thought about this in my mind, and I'm happy I'm sharing this on this my live, on this my video. Now, I have this formula for disability inclusion, for achieving disability inclusion, and I call it the WIBIE. 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 That's WIBIE. WIBIE. Now, what is the W? For you to be able to achieve disability inclusion, meaning bringing all people together, you need to have a willpower. So for countries who say, oh, we're disability inclusive, or government or corporations who say, oh, this is a disability inclusive organization, there must be the leadership that has made up its mind to achieve disability inclusion, or else it's just a lip service. The willpower, and you know why this willpower is important. Now, the second thing that you need to have is information. You can't achieve disability inclusion without having data. So the first part of the information is data gathering. So who are the people? So take, for instance, this is my organization, and I'm trying to make this for persons with disability in my organization. I need to have the data. Who are the persons that have this disability? What are their needs? What type of disabilities do they have? That's the starting point. If you do not have data, you cannot achieve inclusion, because you can't assume. You need to be specific, because it's the individuals you're talking about. So you need to be specific on the particular need that you're trying to intervene or cater for. The other part of the information is the information dissemination. Now, because it's not your regular thing, regular in the word of regular, sometimes people want to do achieve inclusion, but you need to let the other people know what you're about to do. So as the leader of an organization, once you have this data, or even this can happen side by side, but the members of your team need to know what you want to do. They need to appreciate the direction, the vision that you have set, so that everybody is aware. Now, what does this achieve? People are on board. Everybody is also making contribution, and even for the persons with disabilities, they have already enjoyed accommodation, because there will be some form of reasonable accommodation for them at that point, because everybody is now ready to make sure that they are not excluded. Now, the third thing that's of my formula for achieving disability inclusion is the budget. You cannot achieve disability inclusion without a budget, and that's the truth. Because sometimes people have the good things in their mind they want to do, but of course you have to buy the equipment. Of course you need to do some renovation. That requires some budget. So you need to be able to have a budget that you're going to work with to have the disability inclusion for persons with disabilities. And then, of course, there's going to be the implementation. Now you have a budget, everybody is on board, you have a data. Implementation. Who does the implementation? It's not management, it's not HR. Oh yes, they are part of the team, but you need to have persons with disabilities who you want to cater for as part of the implementing partners. They need to tell you how it will work with them. They need to tell you how it's going to suit them, because you're actually catering for their needs. So sometimes people make this mistake of getting people to do it, or okay, don't worry, let's just do it. No, you need to be able to make sure that the people who are going to be benefiting for this inclusion process are part of the implementation. And you know why that's important? Because when you get to the next step, which is the evaluation, they will also be there to tell you how your intervention has made them feel better. So I hope this was useful. I'm doing this in support or to mark the International Day for Persons with Disabilities. Remember, everybody has a right to have access to education, to health, and whatever thing, even to employment. So we should not put aside persons with disabilities as a result of the impairment that they have. And also remember that the impairment or the disability is not the problem. The problem is the barrier. So let's eliminate this barrier and let's have an inclusive society for all persons. All right, I hope this was useful. Thank you. Bye.